Good morning, everyone. This video is for March 15th and 16th, pretty much the first day of this new term. Today, we're going to start with some brief evolution notes. We started kind of talking about evolution last Wednesday/Thursday. So I'm going to review some things, then continue to talk about it. Today, we're going to talk about evidence, and actually, we're going to talk about that for the next couple weeks. But today, we're going to focus on the fossil part, what fossils tell us. So after the brief notes, we're going to do the fossils interactive activity, and then we're going to end with the fossils exit ticket. So how we define evolution. As you learned last week, we have a very simple definition of evolution, which is simply just change over time. And the reason why I wanted to make this very basic at first is to get you thinking about how we talk about evolution in everyday life. We commonly use the term evolution or things evolving to describe how things change over time. And these are just everyday things like cell phones. Cell phones have certainly changed over time. We don't have the super clunky phone from the 80s, and we don't have the Nokias like in the 90s and early 2000s. And now we have those smartphones, and even those have changed a lot over time. If you're a big fan of Pokemon, we talk about evolving Pokemon from a very small character to one big character. We can talk about how music has evolved from listening to it on vinyl records to cassette tapes, CDs, MP3s, and then cell phones now. Cars have certainly evolved over time. They were very, very basic and not motorized for quite a long time until we have the motorized vehicles that we have today. And even something like the light, how we light our rooms used to be just wood splinters and candles and lamps, then light bulbs, and now we have so many different varieties of light bulbs. So I made that point to continue with talking about evolution. And again, it's changed over time, and we have adapted to that similar idea, how things change over time, and apply it to living organisms. So things like giraffes didn't always have those long necks, but that kind of evolved over a long period of time. Same with horses, 500 million or 50 million years ago. They were pretty small compared to what they look like today. And of course, humans have even evolved from a different ancestor. We looked very different millions of years ago. So, what is evolution in biology? A more appropriate biological definition would be the slow, gradual change in a species over time, with the emphasis being the slow, gradual. So when we say slow, we mean like thousands to millions of years in most cases. Living things like most animals that we're aware of, and even ourselves, have taken millions of years to get where we are now. There are some species that have short reproductive rates, like bacteria, that can evolve a lot more quickly. So bacteria reproduce about every 20 minutes, so they can evolve significantly faster than, let's say, humans, who our whole lifespan is, 80 to 100 years. So it takes a lot longer for us to change as a whole than bacteria, because it just takes a little bit of time. And we can actually see evolution in bacteria nowadays, especially with antibiotic resistance, which is where bacteria kind of see these antibiotics and they learn to fight them off really quickly. And that's why we have to kind of keep making new ones. So just in the last few million years, as much as that seems like a really long time, it's fairly short, but hundreds of species have become extinct. So there are possibly species we've never, ever seen before. And then there's hundreds that have also developed, that have been created in the last few million years. So how do we know that evolution is happening? So with this, you have to remember from last semester, one of the first few weeks, we went over vocabulary, and we talked about theory and what theory means in science versus just everyday life. So even though it is called the theory of evolution, when we're talking about scientific theories, nothing is just a theory. In science, a theory requires a lot more evidence, a lot more backing. It's very different from if you were to walk up to your friend today and say, "Hey, Megan, I have a theory. I think that these two people are dating." That is very different from how we use theory in science. Theories in science require a lot of evidence acquired from multiple experiments performed by multiple scientists. And this is over many, many years. So it's not just someone had this bright idea and that's what we go by. Lots of experiments, lots of scientists, lots of evidence. So we're going to start looking at evidence. And today we're going to start on fossil evidence. So you may know already, but fossils are just any trace or remains of an organism that have been preserved by natural processes. Okay, so these are actual parts of organisms that we've been able to see because they've been preserved in a variety of different things. Studying these fossils have allowed scientists to compare the remains of ancient organisms to ones that we see in present day to see how they're related, what they most look like. Fossils can form from amber, ice, tar, petrification, and it can be bones buried under sedimentary rock. We can find fossils in many, many different forms. And of course, the older the fossil, the deeper it'll be buried. So I have some pictures on the next slide here. So this is what I mean by the deeper the rock, the older it is. So if you're looking at just a very large piece of rock, you might be able to see different lines, different layers. And the deeper layers, the ones closest to the bottom, are going to be your older ones. The ones nearest the top are more recent. That's just because after years, things pile on top of each other, press down. And yeah, that's how it comes to be. And fossils look, like I said, many different ways. So here's a fossil. There is very similar and resembling Jurassic Park with a mosquito inside of amber. And then some bones. So in the past, you've probably been familiar with things like dinosaur fossils, how we've been able to find bones in a variety of different places around the world, and essentially put them together to create what we think these organisms look like. So with that being said, we're going to do an activity today that goes over how we look at and study fossils. So we're going to go to Canvas and go to modules. And while I'm here, I'm going to remind you, I've been trying to make these a little bit more neat. So under Unit 2, you'll have a page for each day. And then under those pages, you'll have all the information that you need from that day. So here we have Introduction to Evolution. And today we're going to be focusing on evaluating and identifying basics of evidence, today specifically fossils. So under the agenda here, we have our three things. We just did the notes. In case you ever want to go back, I do have the PowerPoint there. And we're going to click on Evidence for Evolution Fossils. So here you're going to see a few different links. So the first one is to download this document because you're going to upload it to ICYMI. So this is what it looks like. It says great transitions and it's about 3 pages long, 20 questions in total. Looks long, but like before, there are just many spaces for writing your answers. So you'll download that to your computer. You'll upload it into ICYMI. And if there's any questions on how to do that, I've included instructions again on how to upload it into ICYMI and also download it when you're done. And that document, I'm going to pull it up on the side here so we can see it. Can go back and forth. We'll go along with what's underneath number 2 here, where it says the ICYMI interactive. So you're going to click on the link on number 2, and it'll bring you up to this page. So this is the interactives page. And I like this activity because this worksheet goes through or goes with the interactive information pretty pretty easily. So you'll start off with some introduction questions. The first 4 are about the introduction. So just it's the first thing that pops up. So here we have our little introduction tab, 3 bullet points, and then some more information at the bottom. All 4 of these questions you'll be able to answer by reading this part. Then it'll move on to anatomical features of transitional forms. So when you're done with the introduction, you'll actually click on begin or press to begin. So we're looking at fossils from 360 to 390 million years ago. So you'll click on that. And we have 3 fossils that we have dug up so far. And the first thing it tells you is a little bit about everything that you see. So each of these fossils on the left here, you can press to excavate or to dig out the fossils and reveal its characteristics, so you're able to learn more about them. All of these at the top, the column headings, you can click on the ones that are underlined to find out a little bit more. Once these fossils are exposed down here, you can click on the names, and that's where you can see more information about those specific fossils. And then, of course, on the right here, you'll still have those tabs if you need even more information. So how that looks like, you could dig these up. It'll give you these links so you can see about those specific fossils, and they'll give you all of those check marks that correspond to the anatomical structures at the top. So every check means that they have that. So you can do all of those. So once you do the introduction and you get to this part, so it talks about the anatomical structures. So it's going to look at gills or lungs first, and these are going to be about the gills and lungs, the rib cage, the humerus, digits, and head and neck. And where to find those? Up here at the top are all those anatomical structures. So you'll click on gills to learn more about gills, lungs to learn more about lungs, and so on and so forth. And this is where you'll find all of the information for those questions on the worksheet. The last page is comparing fossil forms. So this is where you'll actually look on the left-hand side, look at all of those fossils, click on all of these to kind of read a little bit more, excuse me, about each fossil. And just exploring this interactive website will help you answer all of the questions that are on this activity page. Excuse me. Once you are done with that, you could head back to our day's page, and there's an exit ticket. On that exit ticket, you just have 3 questions. I want you to define fossils. So you can use the notes that I gave you, or you can put your own definition. Number 2 says that we learned about transitional fossils today. So why were they called transitional? And then the last one, how do fossils provide evidence in support of evolution? The whole point of the activity today is to learn how fossils tell us how these organisms have changed over time. So in what you've learned, what sort of support in evolution did you learn? And that's it for today. If you have any questions on either assignment, the interactive activity, or the exit ticket, please let me know. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day.